Welcome back to IGN Live at San Diego Comic-Con 2018. I'm your host, Max Scoville. This fall brings the debut of Nightflyers, a brand new sci-fi series from the insanely wonderful, sometimes cruel mind of Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin. Now, I've got a billion questions about Nightflyers, so to help break it down, here's the cast of the show: Owen Macken, Gretchen Mol, David Ajala, Jodie Turner-Smith, and Angus Sampson. Welcome, everyone.
That was great, man.
I did it. I did it. So this is really cool. Obviously, people are going to be making comparisons left and right to Game of Thrones with Nightflyers because of George R.R. Martin, but it's very different. Can you explain a little bit about what the show is?
Well, this is different because it's set in space.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
That's a starter.
That's the first thing.
No, it's based on a novella of his, and I believe he made it because he wanted. Someone said you can't fuse sci-fi and horror.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, they were wrong because he proved them wrong. It's kind of like it's like Event Horizon that meets Alien, that meets Psycho in space, essentially. So it's like a space horror.
That sounds just fine.
Yeah,
I'm totally okay with that. Can you each tell me a little bit about your character and how they fit into this?
Yeah, well, we're all scientists. This man has sort of heading the mission, except for you, of course, because you're. Anyway, I'll talk about my character, who's a sort of psychiatrist who is in charge of telepaths on Earth. So we're now, 75 years in the future, and the Earth is sort of not doing very well, and we need to figure something out. And so you think we can go out into space and make contact with alien life, and this might save the world. And so by having these telepaths on board, or a telepath, we might actually be able to make contact, and the energy fields are all playing off of each other.
That's all
Am I
assuming
making any sense? Yeah, so anyway, I'm in charge of this telepath, and so I'm sort of taking care of him, and that's why I'm on the mission. We all have different reasons for being there.
Carl Brandon is an astrophysicist who discovers this. He believes that he's found these aliens, but he can't quite be sure because he's seen these trajectories and stars moving, and he figures it's aliens. So he brings on this crew, which is Jodie, which is Angus, and which is Gretchen, of these scientists, to go and try and find these aliens because Earth is on this.
And the aliens are going to want to hang out with us after all the stuff we've done.
Maybe if they're nice.
You're not so sure.
You're not so.
I'm not so sure. I play a biologist, xenobiologist, who's I guess a contemporary of Owen's character Carl. And I don't think it's a very wise thing to engage this potential alien life form. Whereas Carl's character is very enthusiastic. He's trying to save, I guess, not only the planet and the human race, whereas I'm a little more fatalist. And and we are aboard David's ship. Carl organises us to go aboard David's ship, and none of us know one another. So ostensibly, we're all dropped into this maze, which is the Nightflyers ship, and Jodie's character is the supreme being. She's genetically made and coded to be superior to humans and what have you, and be the ultimate sort of, I guess, space warrior.
And so obviously you're all going to get along just fine on this ship.
Well, we would have
David
would have been
really
great.
nice.
Yeah, it does.
It does start off
Best
sort
of
of warm and
intentions.
fuzzy, and then takes
then
a downward spiral.
Survival starts to kick in.
Okay.
And I think everyone's challenged in their own different way, internally and externally. And even though Roy Ayres is the captain of the ship, I liken him to a swan. On the surface, you see him gliding, but below the surface of the water, you see the legs kicking.
That's what you're doing in all those
The
scenes.
little
You're
skeleton
playing a
legs
swan.
kicking.
That makes sense.
I'm a swan. I'm a graceful swan.
No, I mean,
I channeled my inner swan.
So everything you're saying so far sounds very much like that's the sci-fi side of it. Can you touch a little bit on the horror and where that comes in?
Well, so the idea of going to make these aliens, well, from Carl Brandon's point anyway, is the enthusiasm is slightly misleading because he's basically obsessed with the idea of meeting these aliens because he believes that they can change things and kind of they can move through space-time, and he's got a certain emotional connection to needing that to happen. So there's a lot of darkness in all these characters. That's why they're all out in space. Because if you're going to bring someone in space to go travel for 24 months to go meet aliens who could possibly kill us, you got to all be a little weird in the first place.
It sounds pretty weird. Now there was a trailer that went out that showed off a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. The sets you're shooting on look really impressive. Could you speak a little bit about what it's like actually making this show?
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'll say they spared no expense in like building us a whole entire spaceship. is a massive set, and it's you know it's really incredible because it's just that little bit that you don't have to sort of overcome because we're actually inside of this huge set that you know David. What the fuck?
That's what I remember saying. It begins with L.
Our set designer, like he was just so incredible and amazing, and I'm horrible for not remembering his last name in this moment, but you know, they really.
You don't want to piss off the set designer. Something that might get, you know,
he's already
something might fall loose.
David Longhurst. David Longhurst is fine.
No, it was an amazing set. And we didn't have to, you know, you would be in the launch like for takeoff, and instead of having a green screen, which is what you're used to, and having to sort of pretend, there was Earth actually, you know, because the computer, it was just very, it felt very technologically advanced in a way that.
What about the thing, Gretch, where they introduced, they hadn't filmed it before, the stuff that they use for gaming, which they had a like a remote attached to the cameras. And so wherever the cameras moved, this like $2 million screen we had outside the spaceship would move as whatever the perspective. So it was almost like online gaming rather than a blue screen.
In the trailer where you sort of see, you know, there's this one shot where you can kind of see me standing at the, you know, in front of this huge window looking out at Earth. I'm actually looking out at Earth. That wasn't put in. That's actually me looking out.
They built you guys a haunted house to play in, basically.
Yes, they did.
A massive.
And by the 10th episode, it did feel that way.
Well,
it did. Yeah, but we all like, I don't know, it was such an amazing group of people to be working with, and
it's a great thing where you're rooting for everybody until you find out more about them, and suddenly you jump ship. Who's going to survive? You know. Loyalties are tested. We all, at various stages throughout, align with one another, and
well,
you know, whether or not we last.
People are very familiar with George R.R. Martin's tendency to kind of, you know, get rid of people. Now, the Nightflyers novella was self-contained, but obviously you want to make more of a show, right? Is this, without spoiling anything, is it going to be like a limited series, or are you?
I don't think any of us really knows, but I think that the intention is to move forward.
I definitely didn't sign on
to
for
do many seasons.
No, I mean, they've created this entire world in this spaceship, and it can kind of go anywhere. But the spaceship is massive.
And there's so many strands with the characters, and so many different levels as far as like going into the memory suite or going, you know.
And honestly, Jeff Bueller did a really fantastic job of taking the source material and like building this whole world around it of things that aren't involved in the novella, but just like really expand this crazy universe, you know what I mean? And it's just interesting, you know, I think the best way to sort of put it is it's kind of like, you know, this, Roy Ayers is this billionaire colonizer. He builds all these colonies on, you know, off planet. And this ship, which is like so amazing and so advanced and so massive, we kind of all get stuck on it. So it kind of becomes this like fancy gilded birdcage for all of us. We're just like trapped inside this thing, and we can't get out.
I'm dying to check it out. Nightflyers premieres this fall on Sci-Fi. If you are a fan of terrifying stuff from outer space, don't go anywhere, because we hunted down the cast with a Predator, and we are forcing them to hang around here in our studio. And then after that, we're playing some Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And that's all coming up right after we take a short break.